The unseen catalyst. The galaxy had always been peaceful, at least from the perspective of Earth. The humans had lived their lives, mostly unaware of the far-reaching politics of space, the laws that governed it, and the ancient, often mysterious alien races that called the stars their home. Yet, all that was about to change, and none of them saw it coming. It started with a signal. A strange, encrypted message broadcasted from deep within the unexplored reaches of space. It wasn't directed at Earth. In fact, the message wasn't meant for humans at all. The Galactic Council, an ancient organization that had governed the galaxy for millennia, had sent it to a distant, long-forgotten race of aliens who were believed to have perished ages ago. The message was clear: prepare for the rise of the forgotten. However, the message didn't stay hidden for long. As it traveled through space, a stray signal caught the attention of Earth's most advanced deep space radar system. It was a technology designed to track asteroids, but over the years, it had been upgraded to detect anomalies, strange signals, and anything out of the ordinary. And that's exactly what it caught: an anomaly. Dr. Selena Hernandez, a leading scientist in the field of intergalactic communications, was the first to notice something strange. She was working late one night in the isolated, dimly lit lab at the Earth Communications Center, sifting through the constant stream of data coming from the radar system. Then, her screen flickered. The words "unknown signal detected" flashed across her monitor, followed by a string of alien symbols she had never seen before. Selena felt her pulse quicken. This was something entirely new. For years, humanity had monitored space for any sign of intelligent life beyond Earth, but they had never received a signal like this. There was no sound, no conventional pattern. It was unlike any signal they had intercepted before. As she tried to decode the message, the screen blinked again. The symbols shifted, forming a phrase that Selena couldn't believe. It read, "This message was not intended for you, but you are about to hear it." She quickly reported the anomaly to her superiors, but by the time the authorities arrived, the signal had already stopped. The message was gone. However, Selena's curiosity had only just begun to grow. Something about the words stuck with her. You are about to hear it. The next few days were filled with discussions about whether the signal had been a glitch, a random noise, or an accidental broadcast. But Selena knew better. She was certain this wasn't just a technical error. It was too deliberate, too specific. And most importantly, the message wasn't meant for Earth. It was meant for someone else, someone far away. And yet, it had found its way to them. As the days passed, Selena began researching every possible angle. She reached out to other experts in alien communications, all of whom were baffled by the strange nature of the signal. They found no match to any known alien language, no pattern that could be deciphered with their current technology. Yet, one thing was certain: Earth had just intercepted something that the galaxy had never intended for them to hear. At the same time, in another part of the world, the governments of Earth were beginning to take notice. The signal had been logged, analyzed, and flagged as an extraordinary event. A special team of diplomats, military leaders, and scientists was put together to discuss the implications. But even among the most powerful on Earth, no one could predict the consequences of what had just happened. A few days after the signal, Earth received a visitor. A representative from the Galactic Council arrived, seemingly out of nowhere, with a warning. The Council was an ancient and powerful organization that had ruled the galaxy for as long as anyone could remember. Their rules were absolute, and they controlled the actions of countless alien species, some of whom had been in contact with Earth for centuries. The representative, a tall, silver-skinned alien named Arathos, explained that Earth's accidental interception of the message was no coincidence. The message was part of a plan set in motion long before humanity had even existed. "You have awoken something," Arathos said in a calm, measured tone. "The galaxy was not ready for you to hear that message. You were never meant to. But now that you have, there will be consequences." He didn't elaborate on what those consequences might be. Instead, he delivered the warning and left, leaving behind a sense of unease and uncertainty. Earth had learned too much, too quickly. Meanwhile, Selina continued her investigation. Despite the Council's warning, she refused to back down. She knew this wasn't just an isolated incident. Something had changed. Something was coming, and humans would have to face it, whether they were ready or not. As she dove deeper into the mystery of the signal, Selina found another unsettling fact. The message had been a warning about the forgotten, an ancient race that had been exiled from the galaxy centuries ago. But why was it being broadcast now? And why was Earth hearing it? She couldn't answer these questions yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Earth had just become a player in a game it didn't understand. The stakes were higher than they ever could have imagined, and the galaxy had just been changed forever. In the end, Selina knew that humanity's role in the future was about to be rewritten. Earth had no choice but to confront the consequences of what they had uncovered. The tipping point had arrived, and there was no going back. The world stood still for a moment after the signal, but only for a moment. As soon as the Galactic Council's representative, Arathos, had left the Earth government building, a sense of urgency filled the air. Leaders around the world gathered in secret, talking in hushed voices about what was to come. Earth had crossed a line they didn't even know existed, a line that could never be uncrossed. Dr. Selina Hernandez found herself in the middle of it all. She had received numerous messages from different governments and organizations, all requesting her presence and expertise. But she knew the truth. This was bigger than just one scientist. The whole planet had just been thrust into a cosmic game, and no one was prepared. Selina couldn't shake the chilling words Arathos had said. "You have awoken something." What did that mean? Was it a threat? A warning? Or something worse? She spent sleepless nights in her lab, replaying the message over and over in her mind, trying to decode the alien language. She even considered the possibility that the signal was a test. But a test for what? Who? And why had Earth been chosen to hear it? Days turned into weeks, and the world around her grew increasingly tense. The Galactic Council was not the type of entity that made idle threats. Their power was legendary, and the consequences of angering them were often severe. Yet Selina couldn't bring herself to trust them. There was something off about the way they acted, something hidden behind the calm facade of the representative. It wasn't just a warning. It felt like a setup. Meanwhile, the governments of Earth were making plans of their own. A global coalition was formed, bringing together the best minds from every corner of the world to figure out how to handle the situation. But none of them could agree on one thing: what exactly was coming and how would they face it. In one of the most secure locations on Earth, a top-secret council was formed to discuss the future of humanity in this new reality. These were the world's most influential leaders, military commanders, and scientists, and they were in complete disagreement. Some called for cooperation with the Galactic Council, believing that it would be the only way to avoid an all-out war. Others, led by the world's most powerful military leaders, wanted to strike back. They were convinced that Earth needed to take control of the situation before it got out of hand. Selina, who had always been a voice of reason in these discussions, stood at the center of the debate. "We don't know enough about what we're dealing with," she said, pacing back and forth in the high-security meeting room. "We don't even understand the signal fully. It's possible the Council's warning was not just about the forgotten. It could be about something else entirely." "Something worse," a general interjected. "If that's the case, then we need to prepare to fight. We've spent decades building our defense systems for this moment, and now we know that the galaxy isn't as peaceful as we once thought." Selina paused. "You're thinking too small," she replied. "The signal didn't just tell us something about the forgotten. It told us something about the galaxy as a whole. We need to look at the bigger picture." But the leaders were divided. Some wanted to take action immediately, while others thought it best to wait and see what the Council would do next. The one thing they all agreed on was that they needed to find more information, and fast. As the discussions continued, Selena received an encrypted message from a mysterious source, someone who claimed to have information that could change everything. It was short, to the point, and chilling. The forgotten are coming, but they are not alone. Selena stared at the message for a long time. Her mind raced. The forgotten, a name that had only been whispered in the dark corners of galactic history, were about to return. But the fact that they weren't coming alone meant one thing. Something far more dangerous was on the horizon. She quickly contacted the Coalition, urging them to take the threat seriously. This wasn't just about humanity's future, it was about the future of the entire galaxy. And whatever was coming, it wasn't going to be something Earth could fight alone. At that moment, a new realization hit Selena. The signal had been more than a warning. It had been a call to action. And Earth had no choice but to respond. The coming days would test the very foundations of humanity's strength. As Selena looked out over the vast cityscape below, she knew that Earth was no longer just a quiet, isolated planet. The entire galaxy was watching them, and the decisions they made in the coming weeks would determine their survival. But the biggest question remained: who could they trust? The Galactic Council, the mysterious message from the forgotten, or their own instincts, telling them to prepare for something far more dangerous than they could imagine. As Selena gathered her team to prepare for the next steps, she couldn't help but feel the weight of what was to come. The future of humanity was in their hands, and the stakes had never been higher. The days following Selena's discovery passed in a blur. Governments across Earth had been thrown into a frenzy. The warning from the mysterious message had rattled every leader. No one knew who the forgotten truly were, but there was one thing everyone agreed on. They were something no one could afford to ignore. Selena's mind raced with the implications of the message. The forgotten are coming, but they are not alone. What did that mean? Who was coming with them? She had a feeling that the Galactic Council's calm demeanor was nothing but a facade to hide the truth. The more she delved into the data she had collected from the signal, the more it felt like they were missing something critical. She'd spent long hours in her lab, poring over every bit of data. But it was like trying to piece together a puzzle where half of the pieces were still hidden. The signal had given them nothing concrete, no clear answers, just enough cryptic clues to leave them all on edge. In the meantime, the Global Coalition convened again. This time, they were discussing something far more urgent than just the forgotten. They were talking about the mysterious alien force that had been implied in Selena's message. There was a growing concern that Earth wasn't just facing one enemy, but an alliance of enemies. And that meant they would need to act quickly, or risk being wiped out before they even understood the full scale of the danger. "We don't even know who's out there," said General Jordan, his voice grim as he stared at the projection of the galaxy on the wall. "The Council has warned us that they can't be trusted. And if the forgotten are truly coming, we need to make sure we're ready for whatever else might be following them." Selena stood at the table, listening to the heated discussions around her. There were those who thought the best course of action was to fight back, to build stronger defenses and prepare for an all-out war. Others wanted to try and make contact with the Council again, to appeal to their supposed wisdom and seek help. But Selena knew that neither of these options was enough. If the signal was correct, they were dealing with something far more complex than just one hostile faction. "Everyone is looking at the immediate danger," Selena said, stepping forward to interrupt the heated arguments. "But no one is asking the most important question. What are we missing? If the forgotten are coming, and they're not alone, then what else is out there in the galaxy that we haven't discovered?" There was a silence in the room as her words hung in the air. The tension was palpable. Everyone knew that Selena's warning wasn't just about potential danger. It was a call to prepare for the unknown. There were mysteries in the galaxy that they couldn't begin to understand, and Earth had no choice but to confront them. "I've been running simulations," Selena continued. "If we're to prepare for an alliance of enemies, we need to assume that they know things we don't. We've been living in isolation, thinking the galaxy was a peaceful place. But what if that peace was just a lie? A sharp gasp rippled through the room. The idea that Earth had been kept in the dark, that everything they knew about the universe was a mere illusion, seemed impossible to comprehend. But the more they thought about it, the more it began to make sense. "We need to find out who's coming," General Jordan said finally. "And we need to do it quickly. If Earth stands any chance against this threat, we need to know what we're facing." Selena nodded, agreeing with his words. But deep inside, she felt a rising sense of dread. As much as they needed to know what was coming, the truth might be far worse than they imagined. The search for answers began immediately. Selena worked around the clock, connecting with alien linguists, cryptographers, and even historians. They had to find any piece of information that could provide a clue about the forgotten and the mysterious force following them. But even as the clock ticked down, no answers came. Then, out of nowhere, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A classified message intercepted by a rogue faction of Earth's military revealed something shocking. The Forgotten were not just a group of hostile aliens. They were part of an ancient galactic war, one that spanned thousands of years. And the message also confirmed Selena's greatest fear. The Forgotten were being followed by an even older enemy, one that was known only by legend. Selena's heart pounded in her chest as she read the decoded message. It spoke of an ancient war that had ravaged the galaxy, of factions so powerful and ruthless that they had wiped out entire civilizations. And now, that war was coming back. Earth had no idea what it was about to face, and the true enemy was still a mystery. The more Selena looked into the message, the more it became clear that the galaxy was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The Forgotten were just the beginning of something much larger, much darker, and Earth would have to find a way to navigate it or risk being consumed. The countdown to an all-out war had begun, and Earth was woefully unprepared for the storm that was about to hit. The days were growing darker as Selena and the others tried to decipher the cryptic message from the rogue faction. They had learned about an ancient war that had left the galaxy scarred. But that was just the beginning. The truth was much more terrifying than they could have ever imagined. The Forgotten were not only coming to Earth, they were the tip of the spear for an even more dangerous force. In the heart of Earth's central command, a feeling of unease had settled over the global leaders. They had no time to waste. The Galactic Council had warned them of the impending storm, but now the situation had escalated beyond anyone's expectations. The whispers of war were growing louder, and the question on everyone's mind was simple: could they survive the upcoming conflict? Selena was in constant communication with Earth's top scientists, military strategists, and alien linguists. They all knew that humanity had to prepare for what was coming. But what did preparation look like when they didn't fully understand the enemy? Selena had one goal in mind: unity. The Earth could not afford to remain divided. If they wanted to survive, every nation, every individual, had to work together. The stakes were too high. The global summit was being held at the United Nations headquarters. Every major world leader was there, facing a crisis that no one had ever imagined. Some had held on to the hope that diplomacy would be enough. Others thought that Earth's military might was the key. But Selena knew better. This wasn't just about strength or diplomacy. It was about adaptability and survival. When she arrived at the summit, there was a heavy air of frustration. Leaders from different nations were bickering about their roles and responsibilities. Each wanted to protect their own people first, and in doing so, they were pushing humanity further away from the unity they needed. Selena stood at the podium, her voice calm but filled with determination. "If we are to survive what is coming, we cannot afford to be divided," she began. "We have a common enemy, one that seeks to destroy everything we have built. The Galactic Council has told us that we will not face this enemy alone. Every species in the galaxy has been forced to take sides. But Earth stands at the crossroads. We can either choose to work together, or we can allow ourselves to be torn apart." The room fell silent as her words settled into the hearts of those present. Selena could see that her message was starting to resonate. But it was not enough. The leaders had their doubts. They had spent years in power, carefully protecting their borders and their people. Could they really put aside those differences for the sake of survival? Suddenly, an unexpected ally stepped forward. General Jordan, the seasoned leader of Earth's military, took the floor. "Selena is right," he said, his voice commanding. "We can argue and fight amongst ourselves, or we can face this threat with a united front. The enemy we're up against is unlike anything we've faced before. We cannot defeat them if we are not willing to put aside our differences. The time for division is over." There was a murmur of agreement from some members of the summit. Others remained hesitant, but there was no denying the truth in Selena's and General Jordan's words. They had seen what humanity could do when it was forced to act together. The question now was, would they be ready in time? Meanwhile, the situation outside Earth's borders was growing more dire. News reports from all over the planet were showing signs of growing unrest. People were afraid, and they were beginning to question whether the leaders could protect them. Fear, uncertainty, and chaos had already started to spread. Selena knew that Earth's military forces had to be bolstered, but so did the science and technology sectors. If Earth was going to stand a chance, they needed to work together to harness the full potential of their collective knowledge. A new initiative was launched, Operation Unity. Every country on Earth would contribute its resources, military, scientific, and technological, to a global effort to defend humanity. The goal was clear: prepare for the forgotten, and the even greater threat behind them. Humanity needed every bit of innovation and every soldier ready to fight. But even as the unity between nations began to take root, a nagging feeling remained in Selena's mind. She couldn't shake the thought that they still didn't know enough. The message had been clear: the forgotten are coming, and they are not alone. But there were still too many unanswered questions. The enemy, whoever they were, had the power to remain hidden in the shadows. Selena's research team had made one discovery that could change everything. A signal had been detected from deep in space, a signal that was too close to the location of the forgotten fleet. Could it be that the enemy was closer than anyone realized? Selena's heart raced as she stared at the data. She couldn't allow herself to be distracted by fear or doubt. The plan for Operation Unity had to succeed. Earth's survival depended on it. Back at the summit, the final decision was made. Earth's leaders would unite, committing their forces to the defense of the planet. But unity would not be enough on its own. Selena knew they needed one more thing: hope. Hope that even in the darkest of times, humanity would find a way to rise above the threats they faced. As the global summit drew to a close, a decision had been made. Earth would face the forgotten, and it would fight to the end to protect its people. The countdown had begun, and the only question left was whether humanity would survive what was coming. The world was holding its breath. Every news outlet, every communication channel was filled with talk of Operation Unity. The entire planet seemed to have united for the first time in history, focusing on a singular goal: survival. But Selena knew that something more was at play. The signal they had intercepted, it was too deliberate, too calculated. It couldn't have been a coincidence. There was a bigger story behind the Forgotten's arrival, and it wasn't just about war. It was about manipulation. Earth had been a pawn for far longer than anyone realized. Selena gathered the best minds Earth had to offer: scientists, military strategists, alien linguists, all in one room, each one searching for answers. They had one chance to uncover the truth before it was too late. The signal had been sent from deep within the unknown reaches of space, and every piece of data they had gathered pointed to a single chilling conclusion: the Forgotten were only the beginning. They had been sent as a precursor, a force to soften Earth up before the real threat arrived. But who sent them, and why? As Selena looked over the data with the rest of the team, the gravity of the situation started to sink in. The message was not just a warning, it was a command that would change the course of human history forever. One of the top scientists, Dr. Ethan Carter, spoke up, his voice steady but filled with dread. This is not just a military invasion. This is a galactic cleansing. The Forgotten were sent here not to conquer, but to weaken Earth. They were tasked with destabilizing us, preparing us for something much worse. I believe they are part of something far bigger. The word hung in the air. A cleansing. Selena repeated, trying to make sense of what Dr. Carter had said. Dr. Carter nodded grimly. Yes, the Forgotten were only sent to scout us, to see how we respond. But it's the ones who come after them that will truly determine Earth's fate. They're not just invaders. They're pawns in a much larger game. The team fell into a stunned silence. They had feared the Forgotten. But now they understood that they were merely a distraction. Something far darker and more terrifying was coming, and Earth had no idea how to fight it. Meanwhile, the leaders of the world were making decisions, still operating on the belief that the Forgotten were the primary threat. While the rest of the world was caught up in the fervor of preparation, Selena knew the clock was ticking. Time was running out, and every moment that passed brought them closer to facing an enemy they couldn't even comprehend. Selena's team worked around the clock to decode more of the signal, hoping to learn more about the true nature of the threat. But the information was coming in fragments, too scrambled to form a clear picture. There was one thing they knew for sure. Earth had been targeted. Not because of its resources or its strategic position, but because Earth was the key to something far greater. The enemy had been watching for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. In the middle of all this, Selena's mind kept going back to the message the Galactic Council had sent. They had warned humanity, but they hadn't given them the full story. What else were they hiding? A new directive came from Earth's military forces: engage the Forgotten in a series of tactical skirmishes. The thought was simple: if they could stop the Forgotten before they could fully mobilize, perhaps they could buy enough time to prepare for whatever was coming next. But Selena wasn't convinced. The Forgotten weren't the ones they should be worried about. There was something worse on the horizon. And then, late one night, something shocking happened. The signal they had been decoding suddenly changed. It grew stronger, clearer, and more urgent. It was as if someone, or something, was pushing the signal out, demanding to be heard. The message was unmistakable. The time has come. Prepare yourselves, Earth. The true enemy is coming. The Forgotten were only the beginning. The final phase of the plan has begun. The room went dead silent. Selena felt her heart drop. She had known it. Earth wasn't ready. They weren't prepared for what was about to come. "What do we do now?" asked Dr. Carter, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Selena turned to the group. Her mind was racing, trying to think of what they could possibly do to stop this new, unknown enemy. They had no answers. They had no time. But one thing was clear: they needed to act fast. In that moment, Selena made a decision. There was no more waiting. There was no more hesitation. Earth had one chance to strike first and strike hard. "We don't wait," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We prepare for war. We fight back. The enemy is coming, and they won't be kind. But we will show them that humanity isn't afraid. We'll show them that when humans are pushed to the edge, we fight back harder than they could ever imagine." The team nodded, and there was a newfound sense of determination in their eyes. Earth had been warned. The time to act had arrived. As Selena prepared to leave the briefing room, she glanced at the data one last time. The message was clear. Earth had been chosen, not because it was weak, but because it was strong. And now, humanity had to prove that it could stand against the galaxy itself. The truth had been revealed, and the fight for Earth's survival had only just begun. The silence in the war room was deafening. The message had just been broadcast, its chilling words still echoing in Selena's mind. The final phase of the plan has begun. What did that mean? What was coming for Earth that could be worse than the Forgotten? Selena stood at the head of the table, her team gathered around her, each face showing a mix of fear and determination. No one spoke at first. They were all processing the same terrifying realization. Everything they had been preparing for was only the beginning. The real threat, the one that had been orchestrating the chaos from behind the scenes, was now close. "Are we sure it's them?" Dr. Carter asked, breaking the silence. His voice trembled, but there was no mistaking the urgency in his tone. "The signal. It's not just a warning. It's a declaration." "I'm sure," Selina replied, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside her. "Whoever is behind this has been planning this for a long time. The Forgotten were never meant to be the real enemy. They were just a test, a way to soften Earth up." The team shifted uneasily, the weight of their situation sinking in. They had been fighting the wrong battle. The Forgotten, powerful as they were, had been pawns in a much larger game. Now, the true enemy was ready to make its move. Selina took a deep breath, trying to steady her thoughts. "We need to think, and we need to think fast. We've been given a warning, but it's not enough. We need to know what we're up against, what kind of force we're dealing with. Are they a species? A collective? What is their end goal?" The questions were overwhelming, but no one had answers. For the first time in a long while, Selina felt a pang of uncertainty. They had faced danger before. They had fought wars, seen invasions, and endured hardship. But this was different. The enemy they faced now wasn't something they could simply defeat with a strong defense or advanced technology. This enemy was patient, strategic, and unseen. Days passed with little progress. The team worked tirelessly, but each new piece of data was fragmented, impossible to piece together. It was as if the enemy were purposely hiding itself, watching, waiting. Every time they got close to uncovering a lead, it slipped through their fingers like sand. The pressure was mounting. Earth's leaders had been given the message, and panic was spreading through the global governments. People were scared. The Forgotten had already caused significant damage, and now the real enemy was closing in. The world needed answers, and Selina knew that it was up to her and her team to deliver them. "We can't wait any longer," Selina said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "If we can't see them, we'll make them show themselves. We'll bring the fight to them." "What do you mean?" Dr. Carter asked, looking up from his data pad, his brow furrowed. "We have no intel on their location, no idea who or what they are. How are we supposed to bring the fight to them?" Selina's eyes narrowed. "We use the Forgotten. They've been communicating with the enemy. We have to get to them, find out who they were talking to. If we can tap into their communication network, we might be able to track the real enemy down." The idea was risky. They had no way of knowing if the Forgotten's communication network would even lead them to anything useful. But Selina was willing to take the risk. Earth had no choice but to strike before the enemy could fully mobilize. The team worked through the night, setting up tracking systems, breaking into the Forgotten's encrypted messages. Hours passed without any significant breakthroughs, but Selina refused to let them give up. They couldn't afford to waste any more time. Then, just as the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows of the war room, they finally got a break. The system pinged with an unusual signal. It was faint at first, almost too weak to detect, but it was there. And it was coming from the deepest, most remote part of space. Selina's heart raced as she analyzed the data. It wasn't just a signal. It was a direct line of communication, an open channel that the Forgotten had been using to send messages. Her eyes widened as the message decoded, the words becoming clear. "The final phase is upon us. Prepare for the reckoning. Earth will fall. Humanity will kneel." A chill ran down Selina's spine. This wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of war. "We have to go after them now," Selina said, turning to her team. "If we wait any longer, it'll be too late." But as she prepared to make her next move, something unexpected happened. The signal shifted. It went silent. The communication network was cut off. It was as if the enemy knew they were being tracked. "They're aware of us," Dr. Carter said quietly, the realization dawning on him. They know we're coming. They're making their move. Selena's mind raced. Earth was being targeted by a force that could hide itself from them. A force that was moving fast. And now, the planet was on the edge of a war they were not prepared for. She didn't have time to waste. She had to act. Now. We go to war, Selena said, her voice sharp and determined. We fight back with everything we have. The enemy may be invisible, but humanity will show them what we can do. As Selena left the war room, the weight of the situation pressed heavily on her. They had just discovered the truth about the enemy, but they were no closer to understanding how to defeat them. Yet one thing was clear. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. And neither was humanity. The final battle was coming, and Earth would be ready. The days leading up to the final confrontation were filled with a quiet, intense preparation. The full extent of the enemy's reach was still unclear, but Selena and her team had no choice but to act. They knew one thing for certain. Humanity could no longer afford to sit back and wait for its inevitable downfall. The time had come to reclaim their future. Selena stood in the command center, her eyes scanning the holographic map in front of her. The map showed Earth, scattered with military outposts, but it also displayed dozens of newly discovered hidden locations in space. Each red dot marked the position of a weapon or communication relay, and all of them were connected to the mysterious enemy. The reckoning was upon them. How much longer until we can deploy the fleet? Dr. Carter asked, his voice tight with anxiety. Selena didn't have to look up to know he was as stressed as everyone else. We launch in 2 hours, she replied, her voice steady. That's when we make our move. We take the fight to their doorstep. The team had been working around the clock, using the data they had gleaned from the Forgotten's communications to pinpoint enemy locations. They had also improved their technology, finding new ways to counter the enemy's cloaking devices. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best they had. The rest would have to be done through sheer willpower. They've underestimated us, Selena muttered, as if reassuring herself. She knew what was coming. Earth would not kneel. Not now. Not ever. Outside the command center, thousands of soldiers, engineers, and volunteers were gearing up for war. The air was thick with tension, but there was also an undercurrent of defiance. Humanity had faced extinction before, and every time, it had fought back. This would be no different. 2 hours later, the massive fleet of ships stood ready in Earth's orbit. The ships were unlike anything seen before, sleek, powerful, and equipped with the latest weapons technology. Each ship was a symbol of human resilience, built in the depths of Earth's darkest hours. These were not just ships. They were the will of the human race, forged in the fires of desperation. Selena was on the command ship, her hands gripping the armrests of her seat. Her team was by her side, ready for whatever came next. She glanced at the monitor, watching as the ships lined up in perfect formation. "This is it," she said. "We take the fight to them. The galaxy will know that humanity doesn't bow to anyone." The comms officer spoke up. "Admiral Selena, we've received an encrypted transmission. It's from the enemy." Selena's heart skipped a beat. After days of silence, the enemy was finally speaking again. She nodded for the transmission to be put through. The screen flickered, and a figure appeared. It was masked, its face obscured by a dark helmet. The voice that came through was cold and emotionless. "You have made a grave mistake, Earth. You think you can fight us, but you have no idea what you are dealing with. You will fall, just like the others." The enemy's words were laced with a venomous certainty, but Selena wasn't intimidated. In fact, her grip on the seat tightened as she prepared her response. "Maybe you haven't been paying attention," Selena said, her voice steady, filled with resolve. "Humanity doesn't fall. We stand, and we fight. We rewrite the rules. You'll soon see what happens when you push us too far." The transmission cut out. For a moment, silence reigned across the command deck. Then the officers began working quickly, preparing to send the signal to launch. Fleet ready for deployment. the comms officer announced. "Begin the strike," Selena ordered, her voice sharp with authority. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of." One by one, the ships in Earth's fleet powered up their engines. They moved forward as a unified force, heading into the unknown. The enemy had been confident, believing their strength would be enough to crush humanity. They had underestimated Earth's resilience and ingenuity. Selena knew this was their chance to strike, to reclaim their future, and to prove that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As the fleet approached the enemy's position, the darkness of space stretched out before them. The tension was unbearable, but so was the anticipation. Selena's eyes locked onto the distant stars, watching as the galaxies seemed to open up before her. It was time to bring the fight to the enemy. In the final moments before contact, Selena reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the early days of uncertainty to the realization that they were not alone in the galaxy, and finally to the realization that they had the strength to take on any foe. Humanity had come so far, and now it was time to prove to the universe that Earth would never be silenced. The first salvo was fired, and the battle began. But as the conflict unfolded in the vastness of space, one thing became clear. The outcome of this war would determine the fate of Earth, and whether humanity would rise or fall in the face of an impossible enemy. Selena's eyes never wavered from the battlefield. She had made her choice. Earth would not kneel. The galaxy was about to witness something that no one could have ever imagined. On the great day of the broadcast, silence spread through space like a heavy fog. It wasn't just any broadcast. It was a message from the Galactic Council that would shake the universe to its very core. Across planets and star systems, millions of beings, both alien and human, stared at their screens. The faces of those watching were filled with confusion, fear, and curiosity, but no one knew the true horror that was about to unfold. The Galactic Council, the highest authority in the galaxy, had decided to make an example of a group of people. They had chosen the lives of 50,000 innocent beings, people from every corner of the galaxy, from distant alien worlds to Earth itself. This wasn't a simple execution. It was a statement. The Galactic Council was sending a message to everyone, and no one would be able to ignore it. As the broadcast began, the galaxy held its breath. The screen flickered to life, showing images of the 50,000 beings who were about to face their deaths. Their faces were pale, their bodies trembling with fear, but they stood still. They had been chosen, and there was no escape. The camera zoomed in on the cold, stone faces of the Galactic Council members, seated high above on their thrones. The leaders of this vast empire showed no emotion. They were unmoved by the suffering they were about to cause. The decision had been made, and it was final. The broadcast was chilling. The faces of the condemned flashed across the screen, and then came the moment that no one could have prepared for. One by one, their executions were carried out. No mercy, no second chances. The beings who had been selected for death were taken from their cells, their final moments captured and broadcast to the galaxy. The horror of it all was undeniable, and yet it was clear that the Galactic Council believed it had done nothing wrong. The execution was cold, calculated, and executed with perfect precision. It was a public spectacle, meant to strike fear into the hearts of all who watched. But then something unexpected happened. As the last of the 50,000 were executed, the camera suddenly shifted. The broadcast cut away from the grim scene to a different location. Earth, a planet in the far corner of the galaxy, one that had long been overlooked and ignored by the rest of the universe, a planet whose people had never been involved in the matters of the Galactic Council. Yet in that moment, Earth's leaders sat watching the broadcast with stunned disbelief. In every home across the planet, in every city, every corner of Earth, people were watching. The execution had not only shocked the universe, but it had also sparked something within humanity. The broadcast had been meant as a warning to the galaxy, a way for the Council to remind everyone of its power and control. But what the council didn't expect was the anger that would stir within Earth's people. It was then that a message appeared on every screen across Earth. It wasn't a message from the Galactic Council, but from Earth's leaders. The message was short, simple, and it struck fear into the hearts of the Council. We have seen your actions, and we will not forget. Earth demands justice. The people of Earth were no longer willing to sit quietly by. The broadcast had awoken something inside them, a fury that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Earth's leaders had long been pushing for recognition in the galaxy, but no one had taken their calls seriously. Now, after witnessing the cruelty of the Galactic Council, they knew what had to be done. The broadcast had ignited a spark of rebellion. Humanity was no longer content to be ignored. Earth wasn't just a small, insignificant planet anymore. It was a force to be reckoned with. The Galactic Council had underestimated Earth's people. They had assumed that humanity would cower in fear, that they would remain silent after the shocking broadcast. But they were wrong. As the message from Earth's leaders spread across the globe, it was clear that something had changed. The people of Earth were no longer afraid. They were angry. They were ready to fight. But the question remained, what would Earth do next? The galaxy had watched as 50,000 lives were taken in cold blood, but now it would watch as Earth rose from the shadows. Humanity had seen the depths of the Council's cruelty, and they were no longer willing to back down. This was only the beginning. Earth had made its first move, and the consequences would be far-reaching. The broadcast had set the stage for something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy would stand by the Galactic Council, or whether humanity would show them what true power looked like. The story had just begun, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. The galaxy was still reeling from the horrific broadcast. The shocking executions, broadcast live for all to witness, had left an indelible mark on the universe. Across the stars, many alien species whispered in fear and confusion. They had never seen anything like this before. And then, just as the dust seemed to settle, Earth made its move. The message sent across the planet had been clear. Earth would not be silenced. At first, the Galactic Council believed it was just a fleeting moment of defiance, a minor disturbance from a small, insignificant planet. After all, Earth had never posed a real threat to the powerful forces that ruled the galaxy. The Council's confidence in its authority was unshaken, but they had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity. Back on Earth, leaders from every nation gathered in secret. The broadcast had unified humanity in a way that nothing else ever had. People from every corner of the globe, from the cities of the East to the sprawling nations of the West, stood together in outrage. The message had stirred something deep within them, a sense of justice, a thirst for vengeance. For the first time, Earth was no longer just a distant planet in the galaxy. It was a united force with a common purpose. Humanity's leaders knew the stakes were high. They had to act, and they had to act fast. Earth's resources were limited compared to the vast empires of the Galactic Council, but they had something far more powerful, a burning desire for justice. They began mobilizing, preparing the planet for the inevitable conflict that lay ahead. The Galactic Council would soon learn that humanity was not as weak as they thought. In the days that followed, Earth's most brilliant minds came together to create something that would turn the tide in their favor. The scientists, engineers, and military strategists worked around the clock, devising plans and building technologies that could challenge the overwhelming power of the Galactic Council. They knew they couldn't match the Council's advanced fleets and weapons head-to-head, but they didn't need to. Humanity was resourceful, and they would use their ingenuity to overcome the impossible. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was watching Earth's every move. Their spies had reported the rising tension on the planet, and the Council's leaders were beginning to question their initial assumptions. The Earth they had ignored for so long was no longer the same planet. It had changed. Something had shifted in the hearts and minds of humanity, and the Council wasn't sure how to deal with it. At the same time, The Galactic Council began to fortify its defenses, preparing for the possibility of an Earth-led rebellion. They had no doubt that Earth would try to retaliate, but they believed it would be a futile attempt. They had underestimated humanity once, and they weren't about to make that mistake again. The Council believed it could easily quash any uprising, but they couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that something more dangerous was coming. Back on Earth, the leaders of the planet had a single goal: justice. They would make the Galactic Council pay for the lives they had taken. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that humanity would no longer stand idly by. The Council had believed it could execute 50,000 innocent beings without consequences, but now they would learn that their actions had ignited something far more powerful than they had ever anticipated. The message from Earth had resonated across the stars. We will fight. We will rise. These words echoed through the galaxy, carried by the voices of millions. The people of Earth were no longer passive bystanders in the grand schemes of the galaxy. They were ready for war. But what would they do next? How would humanity stand against the might of the Galactic Council? The Council had vast fleets, weapons beyond imagination, and countless allies across the stars. Yet Earth had something else: the courage to stand up for what was right. As humanity prepared for what was to come, Earth's leaders made one thing clear: this wasn't just a fight for justice. It was a fight for survival. Earth would do whatever it took to protect its people, to defend the 50,000 lives that had been lost, and to ensure that no one would ever again question humanity's strength. The stage was set. The galaxy was waiting, unsure of what would happen next. Earth had made its move, and the countdown to a galactic war had begun. Would the Galactic Council learn to fear Earth's resolve, or would they crush humanity before they even had a chance to fight back? The answer would come soon, and it would change everything. The moment Earth decided to fight back, everything changed. The planet that once stood quietly at the edge of the galaxy was now a force to be reckoned with. Humanity, once underestimated and dismissed as a lesser species, was preparing to strike with everything it had. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming, and soon they would realize that their underestimation of Earth had been their greatest mistake. In secret, Earth's military leaders had come together to form an unprecedented alliance. This wasn't just a matter of national defense anymore. It was a matter of survival. The world's most advanced military forces began to collaborate, pooling their resources to create a weapon that could stand against the might of the Galactic Council. Technologies that had been thought impossible just weeks before were now being rapidly developed. And humanity had one thing that the Council could never replicate: sheer determination. The first wave of Earth's response came in the form of a small but powerful fleet of ships. The fleet was not made up of the usual advanced vessels that Earth had used for exploration or defense. No, this was something different. The fleet had been built with cutting-edge technology from all corners of the Earth, utilizing everything from military-grade spacecraft to hastily modified commercial ships. They weren't designed to win against the full might of the Galactic Council, but they had a purpose: to send a message. As the fleet launched, they broadcasted their movements across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, still confident that Earth's efforts would amount to little more than a nuisance, watched with growing curiosity. But curiosity soon turned to fear. The small fleet made its way through deep space, moving at speeds that surprised even the Council. Earth had worked hard to make sure its ships were faster and more agile than expected. With new propulsion systems and advanced stealth technology, the fleet began to slip through the defenses of the Council unnoticed. This wasn't just a fleet of ships, it was a statement. The Galactic Council had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, and Earth was proving just how powerful they could be when pushed to the brink. Meanwhile, back on Earth, every nation was holding its breath. The moment of truth was drawing near. The small fleet's mission was to strike at a specific target, one of the Council's lesser-known but still vital communication hubs. If they succeeded, they would cripple the Council's ability to coordinate their response, giving Earth the advantage in what was sure to be a long and dangerous war. The stakes were high, but humanity's resolve was even higher. As the fleet approached its target, the tension was palpable. The leaders on Earth knew that this wasn't just about destroying a communications hub. It was about proving that Earth wasn't to be ignored. This was about showing the Galactic Council that humanity had teeth, and they weren't afraid to use them. The fleet moved silently through the cold void of space, their target in sight. The communication hub was heavily guarded, surrounded by defense drones and automated weapon systems. Earth's ships had no illusions about the difficulty of their mission. They had no intention of engaging in a full-scale battle with the Council's might. Their goal was simple: strike hard, strike fast, and disappear before the Council could react. The tension mounted as the fleet prepared to make its move. The mission was risky, and the chances of failure were high. But there was no turning back now. The ships sped forward, their engines humming with a quiet intensity. It was almost as if the very fabric of space held its breath. Then, in the blink of an eye, the fleet unleashed its first strike. A series of missiles, specially designed to penetrate the Council's defenses, flew from Earth's ships, hitting the communication hub with incredible precision. The explosion that followed was massive, lighting up the dark expanse of space as the hub was torn apart. For a moment, the galaxy was silent, the consequences of Earth's actions reverberating throughout the stars. The Galactic Council had been caught off guard. Their communications network was crippled, and for the first time, Earth had dealt a blow that couldn't be ignored. But even as Earth's fleet pulled away, knowing they had accomplished their mission, the Council was already moving to retaliate. The first strike had been a success, but it was only the beginning of a much larger and more dangerous conflict. The Council, humiliated and enraged, would stop at nothing to ensure humanity's defiance didn't continue. As the Earth's fleet slipped back into the darkness of space, humanity took a moment to celebrate its victory. But this was just the beginning. The Council would come for them, and Earth knew it. The battle was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Humanity wasn't just fighting for vengeance anymore. They were fighting for their future. And they wouldn't stop until the Galactic Council learned the true power of Earth. The echo of Earth's bold strike reverberated throughout the galaxy. It wasn't just the destruction of a communications hub. It was a declaration of war. The Galactic Council, shaken by the unexpected attack, found itself scrambling to respond. In the cold, calculating world of intergalactic politics, this was a catastrophe. Earth had just shattered the fragile peace that had existed between the Council and the countless other species under its control. And the Council would not take this insult lying down. In the high chambers of the Galactic Council, leaders from across the universe convened to discuss their response. The once stable alliance of powerful alien races now faced an unpredictable threat, one they had long believed would never come. Earth, a species considered primitive, technologically backward, and insignificant. How could they have known this young planet would rise to defy the galaxy's most powerful empire? The Council was furious, not just at the destruction, but at the audacity of the humans. They had broken the unspoken rules of the galaxy by attacking without warning, without regard for the consequences. For the first time, the Galactic Council had been caught off guard. This was a disgrace, and it could not go unanswered. A leader of the Council, an ancient and powerful being known as the Zorith Prime, stood before the assembly. His form, a swirling mass of energy, exuded an aura of authority and menace. His deep voice echoed through the chamber. These humans, they dare to challenge us. They will learn the price of their defiance. His words were filled with rage, but there was also a sense of disbelief. How had this happened? How had a species so young, so primitive, come to this point? The Council had spent millennia ensuring their dominance over the galaxy. They had crushed countless civilizations, bent them to their will, and made sure no one dared to challenge their power. Yet now, Earth was threatening to undo all of that. The leaders of the various alien factions in the council murmured in agreement, their voices a mix of fear and anger. The Zorath Prime turned to them, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. "We will send a message. The humans must learn their place. We will not tolerate this insolence. Prepare our fleets. Prepare to make an example of Earth." The command was clear. Earth would not be allowed to continue its rebellion. A fleet of unimaginable power would be dispatched to bring Earth to its knees. The Galactic Council was determined to make an example out of humanity. Their actions would send a message to the entire galaxy: defy us, and you will pay the price. Back on Earth, the news of the Council's fury reached the leaders, but there was no fear. There was only determination. The small victory Earth had claimed with its first strike had ignited something in humanity. They realized that they were no longer just defending themselves. They were fighting for their survival and for their freedom. In the secret war rooms beneath the world's largest cities, military leaders and scientists worked tirelessly. They understood that they couldn't simply rely on one attack. They needed to prepare for the worst, knowing that the Council would strike back with a vengeance. Earth was still outmatched, still small in the eyes of the galaxy, but the humans knew they could no longer afford to think like underdogs. Every country, every people, every person on Earth now had one singular goal: survival. The first strike had proven humanity's ability to adapt, but the true test was still ahead. Earth had earned the Council's attention, but that also meant the Council would stop at nothing to destroy them. If humanity wanted to win, it needed more than just weapons and tactics. It needed unity. In the heart of every human leader, in the depths of every soldier, there was now a fierce determination. The Council may have been more powerful, but Earth had something they could never understand: the ability to fight for what was right, to stand up when all hope seemed lost, to resist even when the odds were against them. As Earth prepared for what was to come, the first signs of the Council's retaliation were beginning to show. Across the galaxy, fleets were mobilizing. Ships of unimaginable size and power were being readied, and the Council's war machines were primed for destruction. But Earth had no intention of backing down. The stage was set. The fight had only just begun. And as the Council readied its weapons, Earth's warriors readied their hearts. The ultimate battle for survival was about to begin, and there was no turning back now. The countdown to battle had begun. On Earth, the sense of urgency was palpable. Governments, militaries, and civilians alike knew that the galaxy was about to descend upon them with a force they could barely imagine. The Galactic Council's retaliation would be swift, and they would stop at nothing to crush humanity's defiance. But humans were not afraid. They had been tested time and time again, and each time they had risen to the occasion. In every corner of the Earth, people were working together: scientists, engineers, military strategists, and even civilians, building the unthinkable. This was no longer a simple war for survival. It had become a battle for their future. At the heart of Earth's response was a powerful new weapon: the Earth Defense Network, or EDN, a vast interconnected system of satellites, defense systems, and planetary shields that could block incoming attacks, detect enemy fleets, and launch counterstrikes with pinpoint precision. It was humanity's most advanced technology, born from years of research, ingenuity, and the relentless will to survive. But Earth knew the odds were still against them. The Council's fleets were enormous, made up of ships far more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Ships that could obliterate entire cities with a single blast. Earth's new weaponry would need to hold up against overwhelming firepower, and time was running out. In the deepest bunkers beneath Earth's major cities, military leaders convened. They stared at holographic maps, calculating the moves of the enemy. There was no doubt in their minds that the first wave of attacks would be brutal. They had to act fast and with precision. They couldn't afford to waste a single moment. Every decision counted. "We have one shot," General Lucas whispered, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. We can't let this end in one swift strike. We need to hit them where it hurts. The general's words were not just a rallying cry. They were a statement of intent. Humanity had no choice but to face its enemies head-on. No more hiding. No more waiting. The fate of the planet rested on their shoulders. At the same time, in the skies above Earth, something was happening. Across the planet's atmosphere, massive fleets of Earth's own ships were being prepared. These were not the giant warships of the Galactic Council, but they were fast, agile, and surprisingly powerful. They had been designed with one goal in mind: to outmaneuver and outwit the enemy. Every ship, from the smallest scout vessel to the largest battleships, was fully armed and ready for combat. The first wave of Earth's counterattack would not be focused on brute force. It would be a message. A message that humanity was not afraid. A message that Earth would not bow to anyone, no matter how powerful. The leaders of the Galactic Council had underestimated the human spirit. They had expected a quick surrender, an easy victory. But humanity had proven time and time again that it would not be defeated so easily. And so, the first shots were fired. As Earth's defense systems powered up, a streak of light shot across the sky. A powerful burst of energy surged into the path of the incoming alien fleet. The blast sent shockwaves through the Council's ships, and for the first time since the initial strike, the invincible fleets of the Galactic Council faltered. It wasn't enough to stop them. Not yet. But it was enough to make them pause. In that moment, something shifted in the galaxy. The invincible, untouchable forces of the Galactic Council realized they were not facing a species that would kneel before them. Humanity wasn't simply defending its home. It was fighting for its place in the stars. For the first time, the Galactic Council's arrogance wavered. The balance of power was shifting. Across the cosmos, word spread that Earth had struck back. The once feared Council was being challenged by a species it had underestimated. And that was something no one had seen coming. The unexpected was happening. The stakes had risen, and the final confrontation between Earth and the Council was closer than ever. General Lucas stood at the command center, his eyes fixed on the display screens. The battle had just begun, but in his heart, he knew something the Council didn't. Humanity would never surrender. As Earth's defense systems hummed with life, a new development began to unfold, a development that would alter the course of the conflict in ways no one could have predicted. While the Earth Defense Network was securing Earth's borders, far beyond the reaches of human understanding, a hidden force watched the events unfold. These were not allies of humanity, but beings with their own agendas, their own purposes. Far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council, a secret meeting was taking place. An alien race, known only as the Valorians, had watched humanity for centuries. Their technology was ancient, their power immeasurable, and yet they had remained hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The Valorians were a race of pacifists by nature, preferring isolation over conflict. But the Galactic Council's cruelty and oppressive control over the galaxy had pushed them to act. The Valorians had their reasons for staying out of the conflict. They had no love for humans, but they had even less love for the Council. The same Council that had, for decades, enslaved entire species, destroyed countless civilizations, and terrorized the stars. The Valorians had been silently watching Earth's defiance, and they had come to a decision. Humanity was no longer alone in this fight. "I've seen enough," said Silara, the leader of the Valorian Council, her voice calm but filled with a rare intensity. "The Council thinks Earth is weak. It is time we teach them a lesson. The humans may not know it yet, but they have an ally, and they are going to need our help." The Valorians have been monitoring the growing human resistance for months, keeping track of their technological advances, military strategies, and most importantly, their raw courage. Humanity had something that the Galactic Council never counted on: an unwavering will to survive. And the Valorians respected that. With the Valorians' technology, the tide of the conflict could turn dramatically. Their ships were far more advanced than anything the Galactic Council had, equipped with cloaking devices, devastating energy weapons, and advanced combat strategies that made them nearly impossible to track or defeat. But the Valorians did not operate on blind trust. They would only offer their aid if Earth could prove it was worthy. "You know what they want," said Silara's second-in-command, Girak, as he stared at the holographic map of Earth. "The humans have the courage, but do they have the wisdom to accept us?" Silara nodded. "We'll give them a choice, a test. If they pass, we'll help them. If not, they will face the consequences alone." At the same time on Earth, General Lucas was receiving strange transmissions on a secure frequency. They were encrypted, but the message was clear enough to raise suspicion. A new player was involved. The transmission's origin was untraceable, but it wasn't from any known species in the galaxy. It was a warning. The Galactic Council had become more than just a threat. It was now a universal symbol of tyranny, and someone was about to send a message that would shake the Council to its core. Back on Earth, as humanity's counterattacks grew bolder, a sense of unease began to settle in. The Council had already suffered heavy losses, and the first cracks were starting to show. Ships that had once seemed invincible were retreating, their shields failing to hold up against the barrage of attacks. But General Lucas knew that the Council's wrath was far from over. They would return, and they would come with everything they had. But Earth wasn't standing alone. A shadow loomed in the distance, and though the humans couldn't see it yet, they could feel its presence. The Valorians were watching, waiting for the right moment to make their move. The question that now hung in the air was whether Earth's leadership would accept the Valorians' offer of help. The choices they made would determine whether humanity would live to see another day, or whether they would be crushed under the weight of the Council's rage. The countdown was on, and the final stages of the conflict were about to unfold. Earth's defenses were stronger than ever, but the true test of humanity's survival would come when they faced not just the Council, but an entirely new force whose intentions remained shrouded in mystery. The stage was set for the final battle, but something unexpected was about to transpire. Earth's forces, now fortified by the technology and strategies learned from the Valorians, were preparing for their biggest confrontation yet. General Lucas stood at the head of Earth's military operations, his eyes locked on the final stages of the Galactic Council's retreat. The Galactic Council had made a grave miscalculation. They thought that Earth's resolve would break under pressure, that humanity would crumble under the weight of oppression. But they didn't understand the fire burning in the hearts of the human race. The Council had underestimated what it meant to be human. "Do they truly believe they can silence us forever?" Lucas muttered, his voice filled with a fierce determination. "We've fought too long, sacrificed too much to back down now." The time had come for humanity to take the fight directly to the heart of the Galactic Council. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making a stand. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity wasn't a race to be dismissed. The Council had executed thousands, broadcasted executions for the universe to witness, but they failed to understand the resilience of the people they sought to crush. In a hidden command center, the Valorians prepared their fleet. Silara, who had watched Earth's struggle from the shadows, was ready to make her move. Their ships, cloaked and invisible to most scanning systems, would enter the fray at the last possible moment. The humans had passed their test, showing they were not only fierce in battle, but wise enough to recognize the value of unexpected alliances. Yet, despite the allies they had gathered, Earth stood alone on the battlefield. The Council's massive warships emerged from hyperspace, casting an ominous shadow over the planet. It was an army unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of ships, armed to the teeth, each one a beacon of destruction. But Earth was ready. The human fleet, coordinated and precise, awaited the signal. And just as the Council's ships advanced, the skies above Earth's surface erupted into a symphony of blinding light. The Valorians had made their move. As their ships appeared out of cloaking, their advanced weapons unleashed hell upon the Council's forces. Energy blasts cut through the enemy ships like a hot knife through butter, and the Council's ships, once thought invincible, began to fall. The surprise attack threw the Galactic Council into disarray, giving humanity the upper hand. "What is this?" a voice crackled from one of the Council's surviving ships. "Who dares interfere with our final judgment?" "It is Earth," came a voice over the comms, carrying a weight that was undeniable. General Lucas's voice echoed through the galaxy as his fleet joined the fray, locking in with the Valorians. "And we are done being silent." The battle that ensued was nothing short of historic. Earth's forces, now reinforced with alien technology and newfound strength, fought alongside the Valorians with a singular goal in mind: to erase the Galactic Council's tyranny once and for all. As the final ships of the Council fell one by one, it became clear that this wasn't just a victory for Earth. It was a victory for all those who had suffered under the Council's rule. It was a testament to the power of unity, of standing firm in the face of unimaginable odds. But the battle wasn't over yet. The Council may have fallen, but the war was far from finished. New threats loomed on the horizon, and the galaxy was still a place of danger. But for the first time in centuries, humanity stood tall, unafraid and ready for whatever came next. And as General Lucas stood on the command deck, watching the stars outside the window, he couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning. Earth had proven itself, not just as a survivor, but as a force that would not be silenced. "We've changed the galaxy," he said softly to his crew. "And we will continue to change it, because we are Earth, and we are not done yet."